Good morning, Mr. Tan and classmates. Today our group composed of Tahir Jafar, Eruna Parwani, Malak Muhammad, Hua Feng, and my person Ayu Chen have the pleasure to present our speech, our video actually, about pollination. What is pollination?
I don't know anything about that.
Like the bees, are going flower to flower.
Yeah.
When a plant is when the bees sucks the flowers.
Yes, pollination about the flowers.
Of the flower, about the flower.
Nothing, my field is commerce.
Tell us what you know about it. No, not 5 minutes right now. We need just a few seconds.
Like taking, the pollen from one flower to another one, so they can start the pollination.
Pollination es la vaina del sexo, que hace que otra planta tenga su otra planta.
Sí, sexo.
Eso ya.
The what? Sucks the flowers. Sucks the flowers.
The pollination is the process through which bees take the pollen from one flower to another place so the flowers can reproduce and spread around other.
Cycle, we human beings reproduce ourselves with different sex. They pollinate themselves to create other flowers.
Okay, thank you very much.
Pollination is the transfer from the male anther to the female stigma.
Before getting into detail about pollination, it is important to have an overview of the flower's fundamental reproductive organs. The female reproductive floral organs is composed of the carpel or pistil, which consists of the stigma, which is where the pollen sticks to, the style, which is the long tube that connects the stigma to the ovary, which is where the ovules are located, and later in development, it will become a fruit, and the ovules, which contains the female gametophytes, which becomes the seeds.
Reproductive floral organs. Male. Stamen is the male floral organs which consist of anther, filament, and pollen. Part of the stamen that produces pollen is the anther. The filament are the stalks that hold the anther, and the pollen is in the mature male genophyte.
Non-reproductive floral organs. Petals. Whorl of flower organs that are often brightly colored to attract pollinators. Corolla. Whorl of petals in a flower. Sepals. Whorl of leaf-like organs outside the corolla. Help protect the unopened flower bud. Calyx. Whorl of sepals in a flower. Tepals. When sepals and petals look the same.
How do flowers get pollen? There are two ways that flowers can get pollen. One is by self-pollination, two is by cross-pollination. Self-pollination occurs when the pollen from a stamen is transferred to the same plant stigma.
The advantages of self-pollination is that self-pollination can make sure that a species of plants will not go into extinction as two different plants are not needed to reproduce. If two different plants of the same species are required, then there is less chance of pollination happening that often. In other words, less offsprings produced in cross-pollination, so there is a higher chance of extinction, but plants using self-pollination have nothing to fear. They can produce offsprings on their own using one parent.
When the florets were growing, the closed stigma of the dandelion flower grew through the middle of the anthers, so that pollen was transferred onto the style as it elongated. After a period of time, if cross-pollination has not taken place, the stigma curls back on itself to pick up its own pollen from the style below.
The disadvantages of self-pollination is that as offsprings are genetically identical, there is no variation, so therefore no evolution. Disease may also easily spread among identical offspring.
Cross-pollination, pollen from stamen is transferred to a different plant stigma.
The advantages of cross-pollination. Since offsprings are not genetically identical to the parent, these are variations, and these can lead to evolution. Disease won't affect all offsprings at once, as none of them are genetically identical. The disadvantages of cross-pollination. Not a very sure method, as the pollen might not reach the stigma. Two parent flowers from two different plants from the same species are required.
Suppose that we are the pollinators. The following is a demonstration of cross-pollinating the same species of flower, only of different colors, to produce a variety within the same species. This is a process how we, the humans, will pollinate a flower.
First, we must remove the anthers or the pollen sacs of the flower, for self-pollination is not acute.
Now, we are taking the anther of the other species of flower.
Then we rub it in the stigma of this flower, so we successfully pollinated the species.
The end result of the cross-pollinating these two flowers, the red one and the white one, the result is a new species of flower, which is the pink color.
Because plants are rooted in the ground, they must use different strategies. The types of pollination. 1. Abiotic pollination refers to a situation where pollination is mediated without the involvement of other organisms. Only 10% of flowering plants are pollinated without animal assistance. The most common form of abiotic pollination is called anemophily, which is pollination by wind. Hydrophily is pollination by water and occurs in aquatic plants, which release their pollen directly into the surrounding waters.
Biotic pollination is the process of pollination that requires pollinators. About 80% of all plant pollination is biotic. There are two types of biotic pollination. There's ethnomophily, which is pollination by insects such as ants, beetles, moths, butterflies, among others. In zoophily, which is another type of pollination, is performed by vertebrates such as birds and plants.
Why is pollination important? The transfer of pollen is necessary for a healthy, productive, native, and agricultural ecosystem. Without pollination, most plants could not produce fruit nor set seed, and many of the foods we eat will not be available for us. The plants that many wild creatures rely on for food or shelter will also disappear. Plants advertise their pollen and nectar reward them. Usually flowers get pollinators' attentions through their colors, nectar or honey guides, and aromas.
Bees are attracted to yellow and blue flowers. Butterflies see red and orange flowers. Moth like white or pale with sweet, strong odor for night pollination flowers. Flies like flowers that smell like dung or rotten meat. Beetles like dull in color but have a very strong odor.
Mammals, such as hummingbirds, like long tubular corolla, like yellow or red flowers. And bats, during that day, they sleep, so they only pollinate at night. They like white flowers.
Mice. Rodents are attracted by a strong musty odor.
Loss of pollinators, also known as pollinator decline, of which colony collapses disorder in perhaps the most well-known, has been noticed in recent years. Observed losses will have significant economic impacts. Possibly explanation for a pollinator decline include habitat destruction, pesticides, parasitism, diseases, and others.
Insects and vertebrates are not aware of the vital role they play in the environment and are not conscious that they are pollinating. All they know is that they are getting nutrients and food from flowers for their own benefit.
However, the cycle of pollination is a give and take process where everyone is the benefactor.
Good morning, Teacher Titana. We have the pleasure to show you how plants make love. Yeah.
Okay, take 4.
Take 4.
Manito, ese con mi perro se murió. Hay una persona imposible. ¿Por qué estás riéndose? Algo serio.
What the fuck?
Pollination refers to the situation where pollination is mediated
Pollinated
that flower. No! Species of
Pollination is a transfer. So the plant do not. We must otra vez.
which is pink color. Eating flower.
Could you be more detailed in that description?
No. They blow the flowers.
Cut.
Bye bye.
Cut.
No te muevas. Ey, no te muevas.
There are to get pollen. There are 2 ways that flowers